Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We saw yesterday that the nature of Atma is already full and already complete, and in fact, other than Atma, there is nothing else in the universe. Because everything else depends upon Atma for its existence, and Atma is independently existing. But this equation to solve is not an easy one. Ask her. Right? It's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy, yes. So that means any discipline of knowledge, whether it is mathematics or physics or even art or dance, ask dancers how many years they need to practice, ask musicians how many years of practice it requires, right? Do you become a great singer overnight? No, right? So that means if you want to solve the biggest puzzle of life, that also requires preparation. Any other discipline requires years. But here we somehow expect, oh, something will happen and some magic will happen and I'll be all enlightened. It doesn't happen like that. So that means it requires preparation. And in this case, what is the nature of preparation? We saw yesterday that it requires preparation of one important type. When we live in this world, we don't live in this world seeing the world as it is. We see the world from our own eyes. And when we see the world from our own eyes, this is what we call projection. And that, as long as you are living in the world, which is your created world, and not what is, Vedanta, which is talking about what is, what that empirical world and the truth of that empirical world, it is too far. So the first step of growth is to stop living from your own created world and begin to be in touch with what is here and now, the empirical world. And for that, how do you do it? There are different methods given. The whole karma yoga is to become more and more alive to what is. And the first thing we saw in karma yoga is that understand the fact that your position in the scheme of things requires you to respond in the world in a certain way. You have certain duties, certain responsibilities. And that is called swadharma. Doing what needs to be done. Because many times what needs to be done is different from what you want to do. And most of the time, what you want to do wins over what needs to be done. So that means you continue to live from your own world and you're not in touch with what is here. So what does Swadharma do? It makes you it makes you understand the fact that when there is a conflict between what needs to be done and what I want to do, what should win? What needs to be done. That is how you grow, because that's when you don't give more fire to your projections, you give more weight to the reality. So this is one way of preparing yourself. The second way of preparing yourself is when you make the choices. There is what we call, again, when we make choices, they are entirely based on our raga and dvesha. What is raga and dvesha? Raga means something that I like, and dvesha means something that I dislike. So that means the whole life becomes trying to get what I like and trying to retain what I like, trying to get rid of what I don't like, and avoid what I don't like. And that's okay. But when samanya dharma, universal ethical values, come in conflict with my like and dislike, then sometimes my choices are in keeping with universal values, and sometimes my choices are in keeping with my raga and dvesha, my likes and dislikes. So I hear many people, that one common problem I hear people having, not here, everywhere in the world, that imagine you fall in love with a married man, raga dvesha. That this person is already with somebody, if he is left, different. And then you, on one hand, you have your likes and dislikes, that you like this person, and on the other hand is dharma. And how we generally think we are good human beings, and yes, we are. But what then happens is, sometimes your raga and dvesha begins to take over. So therefore, it says that it's okay to have preferences, but if it is pursued at the cost of dharma, then there is a big consequence that we don't see, at that given point in time. But it does create conflict. It does create insecurities. It does create anxieties. And this is what, and ultimately it can also create unseen result. So therefore, what this whole life of Karma Yoga is, when raga and dvesha, your likes and dislikes, conflict with samanya dharma. Which samanya dharma here you are not honoring, non-hurting. Because when you engage in a relationship with somebody who's married to another woman, you're creating a deep hurt in the other person. So therefore, these are the choices. When we make these choices, we have to be careful. So this is what we call samanya dharma. Samanya dharma is universal ethical value. In this case, which value? The value of non-hurting. My decisions, if they go against the universal value, then I have to restrain myself, because that is growth. If I just do what I feel like, then I'm living from what? My created world, not what is. Yes.
Quite often it's so difficult to decide. Yes. I really don't know what is right or wrong, even if I think about it. I don't know.
Okay. See, one thing is very important. I mean, at least, see, when you create deep hurt in somebody else, So I would say there is nothing, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time because I have too many things, but these are just simple issues, and just a rule, right? That let's say that person is not at all getting along with his wife, for example, right? And then you come in the life and you find some connection, for example. Then what happens is you just get engaged in that relationship. So what I think what one can do, I don't want to give an advice, but what one can do is that ask him first to kind of break, because that is important. You can't just start something and then he's cheating and then he's not telling his wife. That creates a huge karma. That you get attracted, but that has to be then very clear. If that really was the case, that has to first stop and then this can. But if it all starts like that, it creates big, big things. Just by the way. So I'm not giving an advice. Please understand, I'm not giving an advice, you should do this, you should not do this. This is not my role. My role is that when we make decisions, we don't have sometimes consideration for others and the suffering of others as a result of choices we make. And therefore, you have to learn to be that sensitive person and find a way. Some things you have to do, but find a way which is ethical and which at least you try to minimize the hurt. You try. It's not like you are indifferent and you only go by what you want. So therefore, this is what we call learning to live with what we call samanya dharma. This is your preparation for that final knowledge. You reduce your projections and you begin to do what needs to be done. The third thing we saw is even all these decision making is with reference to today, how you are going to make decisions. Samanya dharma, swadharma. But each one of us is kind of at any given point in time when the person comes to Vedanta is stuck with certain emotions such as anger, sadness, fears, which are a result of what happened to us in the past. And what happens is that we are carrying the impressions of it and we are carrying the burdens of it. And now, and that means, again, that makes us live from life from our own heaviness. We are weighed down by those fears, those angers, those sadnesses which keep manifesting. And when we are weighed down by those things, we are not in touch with what is. We again continue to live from our own projections of the world. So now you need to reduce that also.
So easy.
Yes, but that's why the final puzzle is not easy. If I ask you, do PhD in physics, is it easy? No. If I ask you to become a very excellent musician who's performing in the New York Philharmonic, is it easy? No. Then why do you expect that the biggest puzzle of the life is just going to come like that? But I tell you, every time that you work on yourself and reduce your subjectivity, there is the feedback from the universe. You will feel good. You will begin to relax. You will avoid conflicts. You will begin to be cheerful. That is the biggest reward. It's not that only when you get this knowledge, which is final knowledge, then only, oh, some bliss will come, and otherwise you are like struggling. No. These are all our projections. We don't understand what Vedanta is saying, what Bhagavad Gita is saying. So we create a fantasy in our mind and start living from that fantasy. And we overlook all these verses which are talking about growth, which is such an important part of knowing the reality. We skim through them. So that means this is the job which needs to be done. More or less clear yourself from all the burdens of your emotions. And the fourth thing which is part of Karma Yoga, and that is what, even if you do all of that, right? You do Samanya Dharma, universal ethical values you follow, you do your duties and responsibilities, you take care of your emotional loads, still things may not happen your way all the time. So that means there is another source of upheaval, and that also has a solution. And that solution is that you begin to understand that the results are not in your hand, because they are really not in your hand. Yesterday we went to the restaurant, and he was applying this more or less what? Equal and opposite. And his dosa, that what he ordered, came last. So he says it is less than expected, but the food was good, so it is more than expected, so it's now equal. So therefore, that is true in starting from the restaurant, your dosa, to everything else in life. So therefore, when things don't happen your way, there is another source of suffering. Then the only way you can have a certain amount of samatva, certain amount of equilibrium, is by understanding that these results which are not in your hand, they are not just random. They don't come from an unfair world, but they come from the laws which are infallible in nature. For example, when you, let's say, by some reason, let's say you trip and you fall, and then you get hurt, do you say that the laws of gravity are so cruel?
No.
No. Why don't you say, they are so unfair because I'm so hurt? The laws are laws. They have to do their job. Why? Because laws of gravity not only make you fall, but they also keep the earth on its own axis. The laws of gravity also keep all the stars and the planets and all in their own positions. If the laws of gravity begin to change for you so that you don't fall, what will happen to the universe? So that means, please don't begin to think that the universe acts according to your whims and fancies. And when it doesn't act according to your whims and fancies and expectations, the world does not, it doesn't mean that the world is meaningless, the world is random, the world is unfair. So therefore, this is all change of mindset. Reducing Jiva Srishti. reducing your personal projections on the world and begin to see the world as it is and start living in the world. Begin to function in the world properly. First preparation. For Vedanta. So therefore, here he uses a beautiful word. He says, the minute you begin to understand that the world is very intelligently put together, the forces are so intricately designed, and they're all interconnected, and there are causes and causes and causes from the past to the present, and everything is connected to give me the result. And this is why I can't always get what I want. Then what begins to happen is, the word which is used here is a beautiful word, which is prasada buddhi. Prasada buddhi means the intelligent design of the universe. We will see the nature of Ishvara, it's coming soon. The intelligent design of the universe is infallible in nature. And whatever comes from it is something which is what? As a result of so many different forces and laws coming together. And then what I can do is accept it gracefully. But accepting it gracefully does not mean being passive about it. You also have to recognize and remember that every situation that occurs requires your response to that situation. And when you respond to that situation, and if your burdens and your mind is not in turmoil, then you are able to what? Stick to samanya dharma and swadharma and do what needs to be done. Then you are totally in harmony. If you begin to live your life like that, you are less and less living from what? Your created world, your needs, your pressures, and more in keeping with what is. Your actions become all aligned. Your life becomes cheerful. Your life becomes enthusiastic, conflict-free, natural, flowing life.
So is it right that I could be a part of creating a better world?
Yes, wonderful. So wonderful. So that means, that's very good. That will come a little bit later, I will do it. It's very nice. So up to now, you have what? The same situations and the same decisions which gave you all conflict and turmoil and this and that, because you are used to viewing it from your little eyes. Same situations you are what? Beginning to live with Ishvara Srishti. Begin to see things as they are and do what needs to be done. You become a strong, the person who has integrity, the person who is authentic, and not this so-called escapist, a spiritual person. You begin to have strength. That is how the growth is. Now, next. So now, this is what the life of Karma Yoga is meant to do for you. Now, the next. I can't spend too much time. I always have to be careful about time. Now, the next verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Lokesmin Vividha Nishta Pura Prokta Maya Naga Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yogina. So, Lord Krishna says that this program, that you want to know the nature of I, and that you need to prepare yourself for this knowledge. For this preparation of knowledge, there are two lifestyles which are possible. One is life of karma yoga, and the other lifestyle is that of sannyasa. You may have seen some of the people who come and teach you. I don't know if you have seen. They wear all these orange clothes, and they are what we call sannyasis. Now, who are these sannyasis? The sannyasis are the ones who have recognized that self-knowledge is the ultimate goal, and I want only that in life. And everything else is something that I'm not interested in. So from now on, I'm going to devote my whole life to gaining this knowledge. So this is why when people do that in this culture, what happens is, there is a ritual through which this sannyasa is taken. So people go on the banks of Ganga and they declare to the whole world that from now on I only want this knowledge. And my life is going to be dedicated to learning and sharing this knowledge. That is a sannyasi. So this is what we call a sannyasa lifestyle. And the second is what? Karma yogi lifestyle. What is this karma yoga lifestyle? You continue to do what you have to do. You continue to live in the world. And before the same world which gave you pain because you viewed the world from your vision, the same world you have to what? Convert into a non-problematic world by seeing what is. So now these both lifestyles are given. Both are, Lord Krishna says, are okay. The Shastra allows both kind of lifestyles. But what is one thing in common between karma yogi and a sannyasi? What is one thing which is common?
The pursuit of knowledge.
Excellent. The pursuit of knowledge is common, lifestyles are different. One person continues to perform all the duties and the other person leaves everything just for the pursuit of knowledge. Now, if you just use your logic, which seems to be easier and faster? The sannyasi seems to be easier and faster, right? All you have to do is to sit and study and contemplate and that's all. And you have no responsibilities, no relational issues to sort. Easy. Lord Krishna doesn't seem to think so. He says, what? What he says is, Dana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. This is, okay, now in the next I will do it together. Please look at verse 15 because that he answers. Please look at verse 15 and I'll come back. Okay, so here he says, I will chant this verse. Sannyasa karma yogascha nishreyasa karabhuho tayostu karma sannyasat karma yogo vishishyate. So here he says, both lifestyle of sannyasa and lifestyle of karma yoga will what? Nishreyasa karabhuho. Both of them will give you Nishreyas means moksha. Give you the knowledge. Prepare you for knowledge. But tayoho, among the two, karma sannyasat karma yoga vishishyate. She understands something, right? So that means he says karma yoga is better. What do we think? What is easier? What we think what is easier is what giving up everything, going, and we have romantic idea, oh, studying and contemplating, and that is the best. Lord Krishna doesn't seem to agree. Yes, both of them will give you, but he says, karma yogaha vishishyate. Karma yoga is better. Why is karma yoga better? Because imagine you have not taken care of all your projections by living in the world, and you leave everything prematurely, and you go and you begin to study and try to begin to teach. What will happen? All those things that you have not taken care of will automatically get sorted out? No.
Huge problems.
Huge problems. When you prematurely leave everything, then you deprive yourself of an opportunity to undo all your projections and begin to live with what? This whole Ishvara Srishti. So that means very often we see that a person, if you take sannyasa prematurely, and if you have not taken care of certain basic issues. What are the basic issues? Your emotional well-being, or your understanding and establishing yourself well in dharma. What will happen is, even if you take sannyasa, situations will arise in your life. And your objectivity will be tested. And this is where we see so many of so-called gurus begin to have scandals. Not because they are bad people, not because they are, really, sometimes it happens helplessly. So there are quite a, at least in India, we read in the newspaper, right? You know how many times we read in the newspaper. Some guru and everybody was going to that guru, and then that guru abuses so many people. Not taking care of yourself. Using this knowledge to bypass all this growth. It seems like the easy way out, but it gets you more and more into adhyatma. So that means you start living a split life. You go and tell people, oh, one has to follow dharma, but behind the back, you yourself are just abusing things. Hypocritical. But you are caught in that role, so you try to hide what you are doing. So imagine how many conflicts you are creating for yourself, and how many people you are hurting by your behaviors because they looked up to you and now they find out that you are like this person. Deep hurt. And then people justify that, oh yeah, now I'm that awareness, so I'm beyond all of this. That is deceiving yourself and deceiving the world. So therefore, this kind of a sannyasa, Lord Krishna says, is dangerous. And this is kind of an extreme thing, but sometimes if you are not well nourished, if you are not well, you are not a mature human being, then what happens is, through this teaching also, sometimes it's a little more subtle. That through this teaching, you want to receive recognition. You want to be famous. You want to get ahead. So that means, before, in a company you wanted to get ahead. Now, as a teacher, you want to get ahead. Your mindset has remained the same. So what Lord Krishna is saying is, hey, if you are using sannyasa to escape all this, then it will be counterproductive. It will not take you closer to the goal, it will take you what? Further from the goal. Whereas a karma yogi who is honest and sincere and is really using life and his experiences to follow dharma, at least he is on the way, much more. Now, that does not mean, please understand, every sannyasi is like that. That's not the message. It's not every sannyasi is escaping, every sannyasi is only a fake person. Please don't think that. Not at all. There are a lot of sannyasis who really have dedicated their life to this knowledge. And even while they are sannyasis, our teacher used to tell them, use it, even your role as a sannyasa, use it for your growth. Don't tell yourself, oh, now I'm like, oh, I've I've done all the part of growth. Use your circumstances, even as a sannyasi, to continue to grow. So that means both lifestyles are valid. Both lifestyles are kind of allowed by the Shastra. Both can give you sannyasa, but both have to be used to grow. One thing which is non-negotiable is the growth. You can't avoid it. The growth is preparation for the knowledge. And therefore, he says, don't be in a hurry. That there is a whole, reducing your subjectivities, reducing your projections, and living more and more with the empirical realities. That is the first step. Then from empirical realities to the final truth. This is the way it is. You can't go from primary school to PhD. You have to go through what? Secondary, undergraduate, masters and PhD. So, life of karma yoga is essential. Life of growth is essential. Whether you do it as sannyasi or you do it as karma yogi. You have a question?
Yeah. Does it mean that actually nobody can give you sannyasi, but you have to recognize by yourself?
Okay, that's a good question. That's a very good question. In fact, generally the tradition is that, how do you know that this pursuit is what I want in life? By the time you make the decision that this is the pursuit, you already have some teacher from whom you have learned so that you know, okay, this sounds like a real pursuit for me, right? So that means when you take sannyasa, it is not entirely your decision. It is also the decision of, it's a joint decision between the teacher and you. Because the teacher is a little bit knowing how you are, how the person is, and what is the disposition of the person, and how much the person learns, what is the commitment. All that a teacher kind of also assesses before. So you may tell your intention, like for example with Swami Dayananda. Many people after studying with him for a number of years, they showed their intention to take sannyasa. But it doesn't mean that Swamiji will give sannyasa to all those who wanted it. So he will kind of a little bit see. And sometimes it doesn't even mean that, it's interesting, it doesn't even mean that, oh, now karma yoga is the first stage and sannyasa is an advanced stage and then there is moksha. It's not a linear thing like that. What Lord Krishna is saying, that if karma yoga prepares you sufficiently for the knowledge, you can get it even being a karma yoga. It's not that you first have to become sannyasi, first karma yoga, then sannyasa and then moksha. There is no such rule. So therefore, if Swamiji saw in somebody's chart, which is the astrological chart, that this person, even though has a lot of qualities like this, but has a different role to play, then he would say, no, sannyasa is not necessary, you have a different role to play. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that kind of, it is a decision which is made along with the teacher. And the teacher has to be an evolved teacher in order to understand what your needs are and where is your position in the scheme of things. Now.
I have one more.
Yeah, sure.
And for sannyasin, it's better to live in an ashram than to live in the world. It's
Well,
difficult
actually,
to live in the world. What do you
no,
think?
see, if a sannyasi, it depends, because most of the sannyasis who are now, for example, from my course, 80% of the students that I have studied with, they are all sannyasis. So this Swamiji who comes, Tattva Rupananda,
Yeah.
we studied together. We were
Okay.
classmates in the same class with Swamiji. And and like in many others, what they do is, they don't continue to live in Swamiji's ashram. They all go back to the place where they come from, and they become teachers.
Okay.
So initially they require a little bit of support, yeah, right? Because you imagine you graduate and now you have to start teaching. So initially Swamiji used to help them to kind of set them up. But later on they become the people who are teaching, contributing to the community, and they create their own kind of a place rather than sticking to that same institute where we all came from. So this is how it is.
But some stay in the ashram.
Some stay, but very few. Very
Because
few.
there's not enough space
Yes,
for everyone.
not only. No, I think it's not just a matter of space, it is a matter of contribution. See, you have studied, now it is your time to go and, share this knowledge with others. And in that sharing of the knowledge, and you will have to look after yourself, you have to set up your own thing, is your growth. So that means life doesn't stop with Vedanta, you have to continue your life and continue to play your part. So that is the idea. Otherwise it becomes like a, old age home where you just kind of go and vegetate, and that is not what it is. Life has to go on. And in that how there are some people who are so smart, smart in a very positive sense, they are very, they want to teach, but I can go out of the course and I can say, oh, I want to teach, but there is no guarantee that I'll get people, right? I mean, somebody has to come to me. So many of them were very, that they made intelligent choices, and now they are doing well, and it's nice to share this knowledge. And some of them are, we want to teach, but, nobody comes to us. So they are back in, the same mentality. So this is where you have to use your life, and you have to navigate your life intelligently. So therefore, and Swamiji used to encourage people to become contributors. So, the next. Devan bhavayata nena te deva bhavayantu maha parasparam bhavayantaha shreya paramavapsyata. So, there is one more aspect of Karma Yoga, and that aspect of Karma Yoga, so up to now we saw emotions, Svadharma, Samanya Dharma, responding to results. There is one more aspect of Karma Yoga, which is understanding the interconnectedness and interdependence in the universe. That's where you begin to have a bigger picture. So that means when you live your life, generally your focus is only on yourself, right? And here what you have to become is a relatively big person who begins to see your connection with all the human beings, all the living beings, not only human beings, other living beings, the forces of the nature. And you have to learn to flow with all of them, because all of them are what? Interconnected. So that means you become much bigger in your vision. So this is what is idea which is expressed by this word. Devan, I will chant, I did it? Okay. So Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu maha. So that means begin to take in your vision the magic of the universe, and begin to have gratitude for all the devas. What is this deva? Deva stands for different forces of the universe. This beautiful chant that she chanted, Shanno Mitra Shamvaruna, Shanno Bhavatvaryama, Shanna Indro Bruhaspati, Shanno Vishnu Gurukramaha, Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo, Tvameva Pratyaksha Brahmasi. So that means, what is she chanting? She's chanting what this verse is talking about. That, my namaskara, look at this, my namaskara to the waters. Why? Because without water, your life is not possible. And the water, you can't go, in Bombay, we lived right in front of the ocean for a couple of years. And there's water everywhere. But in our building, there was some problem and there was no water for 2 days. And I said, oh my God, we live in front of the ocean. And we can't just go and get the water from the ocean. It is not potable. And use it for our purpose. That ocean water to become potable water, there is a whole big work that goes on in the universe. What is the work that goes on in the universe to make the same ocean water a potable water? What do you need to do? You need participation of the sun, which makes the ocean water evaporate and form the clouds. You need a certain pressure before the clouds produce the rain. And so that means that this whole universe is almost like a natural factory, making the ocean water into your drinking water. And so many forces participate in that process. And they don't take holidays. Because if they take holidays, you have a drought. And when you have drought, there is no food to eat. And there is no water to drink. But while the whole universe is working day and night to cater to all your needs, do you even think about it? In your mindset, it's only, oh, my kids and my boss and my this and my that. Your mind doesn't come out of these kind of little issues which have become huge. So that means you have to begin to see the magic that is in the universe. You have to expand yourself. So that means, how do you expand yourself? As I told last time, not by some fantasies. by reality, seeing the realities. My namaskara to the waters. My namaskara to the food. My namaskara to the sun, who participates not only in making the ocean water potable water, but also participates in making my life possible by just being where it is and converting hydrogen atoms into helium so that I get life, and also participates in cooking food for me through photosynthesis, and is constantly at work. And therefore, I begin to what? The minute I begin to what? Deva bhavaya yena. That means the person begins to have gratitude towards all the forces in the nature, which makes one's life possible. That is further expansion. Begin to live less and less from your own little created world to see what? The realities of life. Veils within veils within veils you have to lift before you lift the final veil of ignorance. Veils within veils. So that means you begin to flow with the whole universe. Your existence is the least harming. You don't, our Swamiji used to say that even when you are walking, don't pluck the leaves. What is the use? Do you gain anything by plucking the leaves? You really don't. And what happens to the tree? Tree is a live entity. It's not a dead entity. That you need food to survive, wonderful. You take as much as you have to take. But unnecessarily causing harm to all the different forces in the nature and thinking that the forces of the nature are all, I am the law, I am the king, and they are all made to serve me. This is a very arrogant way to live life. So therefore, you have to begin to shift and begin to be grateful. So this life of gratitude is another expansion. It is not that the sun needs your salutations. It is not that the waters need your recognition. They are not waiting, oh, when is she going to, I'm doing all this work for her, now she is not even looking at me. They don't need your recognition. But when you recognize that, something in you will change. The way you live will change. And you will lift yourself from dissatisfaction to gratitude, the feeling of gratitude. And the more you recognize the forces, the more the forces will bless you. Parasparam bhavayantaha. The more you take care of the waters, the more you will benefit and benefit the future generations. The more we take care of our forests, we will benefit and future generations will benefit. This mindless consumption, mindless, disturbing the forces and the universe has its big cost. So that means there is a further expansion Karma yoga is not just, yeah, I do my dharma and I do samanya dharma. It is a further expansion of expressing your connection with the universe. Next. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharman swanushtitat swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. It's a beautiful thing. And then he says that this dharma, and that is more like what Sabina said. Either you can narrowly define the dharma and say, oh, okay, I have duties towards my family and I have duties towards my boss and my organization that I'm working for and little community that you have. But you can also go one step further, and you can not only just do the minimum that is required of you, but you can become a contributor. That is a further expansion. So that means not only I do the minimum possible, but the thing is, I can really, the more and more I have a vision for participating in the universe, I'm not just managing my participation to reduce my subjectivities. I actually become, I recognize that given the world is interconnected, every small action that I do, which is an act of kindness, it will not only help one person, but it will also help through the interconnection many people. So that means, imagine you think, yeah, I'm doing this job of raising my kids, and suppose you do that job well, how many people are going to benefit? Tell me. Many.
All the people
Tell me.
who are in touch with them online.
So you are not only helping that person, and you are also not helping only yourself, because once you have good kids, you also are happy. So not only you help each other, but you help so many other people, because the same kids go to school and they have to behave with other kids. The same kid gets married and has to behave in a certain way with his wife. The same kid becomes a father and has his own children. The same kid then later on goes to work and deals with the colleague. By changing the life of one human being, how many human beings have you touched? So that means now you have brought this human being on this earth. It was your decision. And then you say, oh, I have no time. And you leave this kid in the hand of somebody who just wants to earn some money. And the child, sometimes people tell me they came home from work and there was nobody and just switched TV and like couch potatoes, just watch TV. See, I don't want to give an advice. There are sometimes other constraints. That's not at all an issue. What you have to do, you have to do. Sometimes you have financial constraints. It's not like you have to. But whatever time you spend at home, Swamiji used to say, if you have decided to bring kids on this earth, you have to look into their eyes. You need to show interest in what they are doing, what they are thinking. Make them feel that they are important, they count in your life. Because if you nurture a human being at that young age, that human being is going to grow up to be a healthy human being. And so many people through generations will benefit from that. So this is what he says, Shreyan Swadharmaha Vigunaha. So that means that whatever little it may seem to you, it may seem like nothing. But if you do it well, then here he says, Paradharmat Swanushtita. So there are a lot of people who used to, for example, come to Vedanta and they were all married with kids and all. And let's say either husband or wife, they come. And they think, oh, I'm going for a higher goal. Swamiji used to always say, take care of them. Because if you escape your responsibilities, you think that you are going for something higher. But in your search for something higher, if you completely neglect something which is your role, it happens to be your role right now. Then you end up hurting so many people. So this is what he says, Shreyan Swadharmaha Vigunaha Paradharmat Swadushtita. A well done job of whatever your responsibility is something which is extremely important, because through that there is your growth. And as you begin to be not only somebody who grows, but begins to be a contributor to the society by doing things well, it will also open the doors for all these Shastra will begin to sink in. It will not seem like some first time somebody listened to Vedanta about nature of Atma and all. And she says, this seems like some Star Wars story. It's like, oh, Atma, the awareness and everything is pervaded by it, and the whole world collapses into it, and time and space also collapse into it, and wow, this is me? Is it talking about me? It seems like that. From this, you have to expand and more touch with everything. Where your buddhi begins to be prepared and you begin to see how true these words are. So therefore, here he says, in that participation, in that gratitude, you grow and you also become a contributor. It's not just merely doing your duties, it is becoming a positive contributor. Good point. And understanding the fact, any act that you do, given the interdependence of the world, will not only pay in what you see, in many other ways. So therefore, Swadharma is important, and expansion is also important, and contribution is also important. Then, the next. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushyav partha sarvashaha. This is a beautiful verse. So now it seems as though only people who come to Gita, people who come to Vedanta, their life is kind of beginning to be in order. And all the other people are what? All lost in life. Seems like that. But Lord Krishna says it is not so. Why is it not so? as we will see little bit later in the next, it will come in next 3 or 4 verses, in the vision of the Gita, all that is here is Ishvara. So that means there is no human being who is really off track. This is a wonderful thing to hear, because you do what you have to do, but you don't begin to judge others. And don't begin to condemn them. This is very important. Lord Krishna doesn't seem to condemn them. He says, whoever it is, ye yatha mam prapadyante. Let's say you propitiate, for you moksha is not the goal and growth is not the goal. And for you, let's say, money is the goal. Then I'm also in form of Lakshmi, the resources. And provided you do things according to dharma, I will bless you with Lakshmi. That is also my path. If you want to be a scientist, wonderful. You may not have moksha in mind, but you engage and dedicate your whole life to understanding some physical laws of the universe. You are on my track. I saw a very nice play. I mean, it's a little bit of a mixed message, but it was interesting. I saw there is a very nice play in Bombay, a live theatre, about Albert Einstein. And in that play, they show he as a human being, as a scientist, and highly accomplished scientist. But he is reflecting about his own life. And there were certain things that were just amazing. It really touched my heart. In one, he is reflecting about his own life. And he says, I was so engaged in finding out all these mysteries of the universe, and finding things and all the formulas and all the intricate design that is there in the universe. My mind was totally absorbed in it. And that gave me this sense of wonder and engagement. But then he says, I was so preoccupied with that. My wife was in the second room, she was dying. I didn't even go to see her. On one hand, the person is dedicated, totally given to this, nothing matters, all this design of the universe. This is not an ordinary human being. You can't dismiss him, oh, he hasn't come to Vedanta, so therefore he's not. Exceptional human beings. But the same exceptional human being can be what? So engrossed in one pursuit that what can totally disregard something else. Then towards the end of the play, there was a very nice thing, that after the Second World War, he was a professor at Princeton University, a professor of physics, and he was offered to be the president of a newly formed Israel state. And now he has to make a decision whether he continues to be professor and be a physicist, or he becomes head of state. And he goes to this function where this offer was made by the United States President. And he comes home and he talks to himself. And he says, on one hand, I have this great opportunity of heading the state of Israel. But on the other hand, I have this whole possibility of looking into the magic of the universe. And it seems that my devotion and my connection to finding the truths of the universe is far more strong than my need for any power. Can we say that Einstein is not in the path of Ishvara because he is not Vedantic? These are great minds. Lord Krishna says, hey, everybody who is doing whatever in life, if they are doing it with the dedication, if they are doing it with a certain amount of integrity, with certain absorption, with certain sense of contribution, they may not tell that I am a Vedantin, but they are preparing themselves for Vedanta. A mind like that, if you expose them to Vedanta, it will be very quick. You can't be so-called spiritual person and completely lost in life. So don't make these kind of judgments. Everybody is on my path. Now, suppose there are people who are just looking for power, looking for whatever. They are all also on my path. Because all these possibilities that are given of what? Artha, Kama, Dharma, they are all within Ishvara. Nothing is outside Ishvara. And in fact, the whole first portion of Karma Kanda is made in a way, it doesn't tell you, hey, all these actions are useless, they will not give you anything, come to moksha. The whole portion of Karma Kanda is what? It encourages you to perform the actions. But within Dharma, seeing your connection with everything else, and it hopes by living a life like that, one day you will become what? Desirous of moksha. You'll begin to see the limitation of everything else in giving you what you are searching for, and you will become moksha. The whole of Veda doesn't condemn other pursuits. It actually not only does not condemn, it helps you in your pursuits. Everybody has their own time and they all need their own growth. Slowly, slowly. And then one day they become people who begin to recognize the limitation of all other pursuits. But everybody is on the path. And this is what Lord Krishna says. So therefore, the way in which people propitiate me, I bless them in that way, Partha, that people follow my path in all ways. So everything that anybody does is within the possibility of Krishna. That nobody is outside that possibility. Now, that also shows a very important thing, the attitude we have towards others who are not into Vedanta. If you are pursuing Bhagavad Gita and you are pursuing the Upanishads and the preparation, it's extremely important for you to have healthy attitude toward everything else. Respect. Don't condemn them. Because sometimes you may find they are more evolved. Most of the time, Swamiji used to say, just by the way, I can't get away from stories. Stories make it all a little lighter. I need to tell the story because it gets too... Okay, now what's the time? 11:30. This is the end. I'll end with a story. Okay. So there was, not there was, when we were in Rishikesh studying with Swamiji, in one of the satsang is a question and answer session. So somebody asked his question, and the question was that, you're teaching, you're a great teacher, and of course he was outstanding, brilliant, and very human, and very evolved. They said, you're teaching, you're such a fine teacher, and we expected all the students to be all like highly evolved people, and all very considerate and very compassionate and very, very, extremely refined. But here also they are fighting for small, small things. And they also have, their own little bit of competition and jealousies and all kinds of behavior that you see outside. So how come they are not growing? That was the question. And I loved Swamiji's answer. Because what he said is, it's true that my teaching is of a very high standard, true. But most of the time, people come to me not because they want to know the final truth. They are in search of the truth. And that they want to just they see the fact that only that truth is going to give them fulfillment. They come because they have emotional pain. They have had life which has given them suffering, and sometimes a little bit more than normal. And they don't know how to handle it. And actually, they come in search for not the final truth, but what? Somehow to have some kind of a relief from all the suffering that they are stuck with. So, when you come with that mindset that I begin to teach, and as I begin to teach, Swamiji said, that all the things which are all buried, they all begin to surface. Because finally, otherwise whole life goes, we put a lot of pressure to put a front where we are fine, we are okay. But now, with this teaching and everything, you get little relaxed, and as you get relaxed, everything starts to come out. So he said that it is fine, because this is how they will get well. It's okay that it comes out, because it has to come out, and it has to be dealt with. And it can't be dealt with overnight. So for the time being, they may look more abnormal than a normally abnormal person outside. But at least they are dealing with it. And ultimately, it will all clear up. Person of vision. Otherwise, we are all into some kind of a spiritual rigid rule. Oh, a sannyasa, a brahmachari should be this. All rigid rules. Nobody lives like that. Nobody can live like that. All artificial life. No understanding of human nature. So therefore, this is how it is. Mama vartman vartante manushya partha sarvasha. Even if when you come to Vedanta, you are struggling, you are still on this path. Don't condemn yourself. Don't say, oh, I can't do it, oh, I can't follow this, I can't follow that. Relax. Ishvara is not away from you. You have to do your part, little by little. Slowly, gently, alertly. And then, time, as years go, you yourself will see how much you have changed. So, this is what it is. Okay. Next will be Om Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti